Right, security migration. No, I'm not going to go through a security migration and like drawing it out. I just want to talk about. I just want to say, let's say like internet, and then let's say firewall here, right? However they're connected, and then users or services. Well, services might be here.
Yeah.
That's at the end. So, the like security migrations, I'm just going to list some things out that I know are challenges from experience, and then you can pass comment, and then after that we'll wrap it up. So, if you've got like firewalls, one of the biggest thing is rule set.
Yeah.
Rule sets, validity. I don't know if that's validity. And what that actually means is like the firewall rules that are on these guys are basically, if you do a firewall migration, whether it's ASA or PIX or whatever, or Firepower to Firepower, or Firepower to Palo Alto, or Palo Alto to Checkpoint, or whatever. Security rules, when you see those big bills for professional services, to do a firewall migration, believe me, they're merited. Unless you've got some kind of super duper tool, there is some tools out there, like there's one called Tufin, so that's spelled Tufin. I don't know if they're still going, but I used them years ago. When we used to do a lot of migrations, and what that can do is analysis on the rule hit counts. Because obviously, like when you've got like a firewall team, especially if it's like not even if it's just a managed service, right? So let's any customer, so whether it's an internal or an external customer, if they phone up the security team or the SOC or the NOC or whatever, and they say, I've got a new application, I need these rules put in place, and then it gets risk assessed against the rule base, and then it gets implemented. Now, normally they don't, like that's it. It's not like, is this, but it's change control, it's change management. Your phone, you've probably got a 24-hour turnaround or a 3-day turnaround, depending on the priority of the change. And all you can really do in that time is risk assess. Firewalls have got thousands of rules in them, like thousands, like tens of thousands in some cases, right?
Often,
And in order to actually say, well, is this application part of a project? Is it? Unless it is part of a project and it's scoped, we're putting in application A and it's going to replace application B. Therefore, once application A is implemented on the network, the firewall rules are in place, decommission application B. Unless that scope has been defined, that's where like the old rules still keep hanging around in a firewall.
So what you're saying is that old applications don't get decommissioned?
Yeah, well,
really?
It's probably the network's fault in some way, to be honest.
Oh,
It's the network team never removed, or the network security team never removed the firewall rules. But I mean, like, so what are some of the, like, I mean, pretty much, to be honest, every firewall migration that I've ever been involved in, whether it's like scoping it out from a pre-sales perspective, whether it's actually doing it as a project engineer, designing the methodology and planning for it, I've never been involved in a project where they went, oh yeah, well you might have a look and do some stuff like enable hit counters on rules for a month or 3 months before you actually like remove any rules, but that's required. But in my experience, it's normally port whatever's in place there across as it is.
The new one. Yeah.
The other alternative is if it's like a bit of a bigger project, you scrap that firewall rule base and you build up
new ones.
a new one on either from an old Cisco platform to a new Cisco platform, or a Palo Alto to a Cisco platform, or vice versa, or Checkpoint or whatever. You just have to build it as new, because otherwise you're going to get a whole load of stuff that's brought across. It might not be relevant, and it's going to. The biggest thing about that is it consumes resources on the box, and it may provide limitations going forward. Obviously, that in theory that should all be scoped out as part of the exercise, but it's difficult to do, especially when there's like if, for example, they were needing to turn something like a quote around, and they were like, oh, we'll just go with this model of firewall with these licenses based on what we know and what we've learned in the last week on your environment in the 2-hour meeting that we had,
trying to get to the bottom. There's no one person knows everything about why stuff is in a firewall, basically, and like say the history, trying to get documentation that goes back and explains a lot of that. There's no good way of doing it in reality, and I think that's the problem, is that if there was a good easy way of doing it, then we'd be across it, right? But
so I'm just going to cover a few more. So VPNs, because devices like firewalls are security appliances these days, aren't they? They can do everything. They can do web filtering. Typically, not always as well as like dedicated solutions. So, for example, a traditional, next generation firewall, I should say, that has URL filtering capability, unless it's forwarding on to like a cloud service or something like that, as to provide the web filtering capability, it's probably not going to do it as well as like ForcePoint or one of the actual dedicated content filtering. It will do a job. It'll probably do what it needs to do for a lot of organizations. But if you want like certain features and functionalities that might be driven by compliance or something like that, then but I wasn't actually going to talk about web filtering. I was going to talk about that is one thing, but I mean I think it's kind of like a side topic, because in my experience, I don't know about yourself, most who get like these firewalls, unless they're very small companies or small to medium, with from the perspective of a web filtering requirement, like they don't need to retain logs for 7 years and things and requirements like that. They don't normally take it all in one box. They normally have like a separate service that.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say an internal proxy or something like that would do a lot of that, sort of take the heavy lifting out of it, wouldn't it? So.
Yeah. But what I do see, I do, and I have seen in the past. I'm not spec'd them up for a while, to be honest. But what I do see quite often is like the VPN client functionality. So site-to-site VPN and client VPN collapsed onto like a single device. So the client VPN, if you were going from like old firewall, like, so let's say that was connected to the internet, and this is where your VPN users come in and they terminate there. Normally, how that works is we say VPN dot firewall 1 dot go, like as the the DNS name, and then let's say this is like this new firewall was like firewall 2. Sorry, just to backtrack there. So this is the VPN client.
Yeah.
And this is the DNS name that they set their VPN, their profile in their VPN client is set up to go to. If you were migrating to like a new VPN client, let's just say this is firewall 2.
Yeah.
You would go to VPN dot firewall 2 dot co. And the DNS name would be you would probably get it pushed out in the background to the VPN client from IT, one of those annoying updates that might or might not need a restart, and then magically you'll automatically this VPN client will change to automatically coming in here based on this.
It's probably the easiest part of security migration, right?
Yeah. Sounds complicated though, so.
Yeah, true. But in the grand scheme of things, I think.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is like you could potentially how to make it complicated would be we currently use an IPsec VPN and we're now going to an SSL VPN.
True.
But we'll park that to the side for this. What else? On the security side, if you've got DMZ how could I forget that? Right. So.
Oh yeah.
So let's say like server is 10.10.10.10 and here it's 1.2.3.10. In regards to a security migration, I don't really think that is that bad, right? But if, for example, you were changing your ISP and it was going away and it was 2.2.2.10, so this was being added to that on the outside, and the reason for that is if we just pick on this VPN client guy again and say that he also wants to consume this service from here, they'll go to originally they'll go to 1.2.3.10, which will resolve to like a DNS name. So they won't type in 1.2.3.10. They'll type in service. That's the DNS name. Because I can't be more imaginative than that at this time. So they type in service wherever, whether it's an FTP client or whatever that kind of application that they're trying to access over here, and it takes them via 1.2.3.10. If you change it to do 2.2.2.10, then you have to consider things like you need to change the NAT on the firewall. You have to change the firewall NAT and effectively the DNS.
The DNS entry, yeah.
Public entry, which can then take some time to propagate. So if you're doing that for one service that's low priority, or even if it's not low priority, there might be another data center that hosts it, so the DNS will fall back. If you've got like DNS load balancers or something like that, it would point to the old location. The other location, the other data center location. So an equivalent of 1.2.3.10 is running elsewhere, but it's a DR instance of it that's replicated or whatever. And then when things propagate again, when things propagate through the DNS system, and 2.2.2.10 is now tied to this, then traffic will come back in, this way instead of the other data center that's not pictured.
So that works really well when you've got the DMZ hanging off the side of the firewall, because I guess the firewall is effectively the default gateway for the DMZ, so that the server can only talk through the firewall, and then the firewall has its routing table that points out to the internet, and all's clean. If that service sits where your users are sitting, down in the deeper into the network, down here somewhere, you've got another challenge there, right? Because if you've got an old firewall connected to the internet, connected to that network, and you've got a new firewall connected to the internet, connected to that network, you've got to worry about how you route out again, right?
Yeah. So without in that type of environment, I would expect to see something along the lines of this. Let me rub that. You get the firewall and the DNS thing, right? So I would expect to see something like this. A black pen. ESLB. Let's just say that's global server load balancing. That's somehow it's connected. It's either connected to both the old and the new firewall, doing its DNS thing out this way. So say that's the authoritative DNS for here. So what I would then say, so, and then we've got a server load balancer here of some kind, right? And sorry, my voice has given up. So basically what I would expect to see here is, the default gateway, whether it's directly from the server on this VLAN or it's via a switch and it's routed. This is where 10.10.10.10 is, right?
Yeah.
So this would then be associated with let's just say a VIP address on a server load balancer. So 10.11.11.10, which equates to service, right, in the internal DNS. So this VPN client guy that we keep picking on, if he was coming in over the internet and not on the VPN client to access this service, one place that he would go is he would look for service. Right? Service would hit the global server load balancer via, which would sit either outside the firewall or in the DMZ. The global service load balancer is continually sending probes to this VIP to see if it's there, right? And then the server load balancer knows, because it sends probe internally to the actual server. If so let's say the 10.11.11.10 is 1.2.3.10. But what we want to now do is make that 2.2.2.10. So I don't know whether the migration for that off the top of my head would be to point that to there or create a new VIP. Or a new probe from the global service load balancer to a new VIP. But maybe you'd call it service 2. And this is
you could do that.
You might call it service 2 would be the new DNS name. But then what you have to then do is add another step into the chain and say, when I'm ready to migrate to the firewall service, the new firewall service, I want to change service 2 in order to now take advantage of 2.2.2.10, which is the public, and it is either now associated with this VIP up here, but it's still associated with 10.10.10.10. So you see, if it goes further back in the infrastructure, you might need. That's just one way off the top of my head, to be honest.
There is another challenge with that, and I guess if 1.2.3.10 would be, I guess, on the old service, right? So on that left-hand firewall, and 2.2.2.10 will be on the right-hand there. You've obviously got to worry about the return path towards the client as well, right? And this is probably where I've found a lot of problems with dealing with these kinds of services, because how you get the traffic to go back via the right firewall in that scenario is tricky, right? Because you come back to that the traffic comes back from that server towards the firewall, gets to the load balancer in your picture here. So your load balancer is responding on behalf of the server in that case. Which way does the server go to send traffic back to the client? You know, do you see what I mean?
The server would always end up sending it to the server load balancer.
Okay, and the server
and the server load balancer. So service is associated effectively with the public IP address and
that one.
There. You've got two options. You can either make service the new IP address, which would mean that it would, I think you know we need. Sorry, let me.
Sorry.
We would need a new VIP. We would need a new VIP there. So we would need to migrate like the VIP that the global service load balancer probes
to a different
new one. So you wouldn't be able to do 10, 11, 11, 0, and then you would need to have some sort of routing on the server load balancer to make sure it routes towards. Because I mean, like, you might have two default routes. And I've looked at things like this in the past as well, where it's like some services have been migrated off the old firewall, but some haven't, and then it's like and then you start getting stuff like BGP running on the firewall or policy-based routing based on service and things like that.
I think those type of techniques, PBR in particular. The other thing is source natting stuff as it enters into the network. So as stuff comes through the left-hand firewall, so it gets source natted to the inside interface of that firewall. If it comes into the right-hand one, then it goes source natted to there, so that your return path always goes to the right firewall, because it thinks the traffic is sourced from the firewall rather than the client. And then I guess once the old firewall is out, you can then remove that source natting. But yeah, I mean, those are the types of problems you get, aren't they? With this sort of
people like that. I mean, I made this mistake when I was earlier on in my career. I thought load balancer was. I didn't know a load balancer was a security appliance. You know, I thought it was there to load balance traffic. But then once you actually learn about them and the different capabilities that they have, and then you start looking at how they integrate into the wider security design like this, you understand that they're security appliances.
It's application security, isn't it, when it boils down to it, and particularly some of the things you can do on some of them about rewriting headers and all kinds of crazy stuff. You know,
SSL offloads and things like that as well. So
exactly.
If you're ever wondering when you go to Amazon or on any online shopping mart, as it were, when you go in your browser and you put stuff in your basket and then you close the browser because you need to go and chase after your kids or make their dinner or run them somewhere or just want a break, and then you close the browser and you come back and your stuff's still in the basket. That's achieved with using load balancers with with cookies and something called sticky functionality. So it means like if you have multiple load balancers and multiple web or a load balancer with multiple servers. So let's say there was like loads of instances at this server down here. Like this is a different type of application now. Let's say this was an e-commerce site and this was like server 1, 2, 3, 4. And you came in from somewhere to 4, and then you closed your browser. It means that when you come back in and you go, I'm back, the load balancer remembers, that you were connected to number 4, and because of that, it knows that it talks to the web application, and the web application knows that you had like 4 things in your basket or whatever.
Yeah, so
and come back and buy it.
That session ID, right? And
if you want to talk about like business drivers and things like that, that's reverse engineering a business benefit. So you say like, right, well, what's the technical solution? But that was actually probably created as a result of a business driver. So they say, well, we're losing sales because when people come to the website, we can see that they're putting stuff in their basket, but then they go away and make the dinner or go to throttle the kids. Not literally, but you know what I mean, chase after them, etc. And then they come back and then they're like, oh, I'm not going through all that again.
Yeah.
Whereas if you come back and it's still in your basket and all you have to do is press buy, it could be £10, it could be £100, or it could be £100,000, depending if it was a business transaction. So, and then also speed of transaction as well, and that all has a knock-on effect to other stuff, like when you go into Ticketmaster and you're queuing. Another business case, that's all done via load balancers. You're sent to, holding pages. There's a countdown timer until you're going to be served, and it's dealing with this scenario here where you've got multiple web servers where you can make transactions. They're all full. The connections are all full, and the server load balancer, security is about availability as well, which was covered in one of your videos, and that all.
And it holds, like you say, it gives you a holding page or whatever until something is actually available for you to carry on. So it doesn't. So again, you don't lose the customer; they just sit in a queue waiting for something to become available. So yeah. Very useful, and I mean you could go into a whole load of other things about maintenance windows and that sort of stuff as well, where you can bring servers in and out of service without actually impacting anybody. But I think
that's enough for now. We might need to split this video into two after, because I think it went on a bit, but
it's all good.
We covered stuff at a high level, and hopefully it gave a good overview of some of the things that you need to think about. And then obviously once you get past that stuff, you actually need that's like the sort of level of conversation that your systems engineers and pre-sales people are having. If you don't know like what they actually do, that's what they do. They go and have these conversations about. And that's only one tiny aspect of it. It's like, what have you got at the moment? Like, and it's like a conversation in like a couple of hours, and then maybe some documents sent, and then turning around within a week or a month, whatever. There's always a deadline, and trying to understand the landscape of a customer's network without going and doing a deep dive and a due diligence and a discovery. You need to have some experience in doing these types of migrations. So when they say, right, this is a solution that I'd like, and then understanding what they've got at the moment and how you're going to get there. And
it's working out the impact of implementing that solution, and where there's going to be disruption while you're doing that how you're introducing the new stuff, and all of those things are the things that make that implementation that bit slicker, right? And so that's why it's so important to go through and understand all this, I think.
Yeah. But I mean, to round off, for example, like, this is a true freestyle because we've just got back into the swing of it. We've not planned any notes. We've said network migrations. We'll use what we've done in the past, high level, keep it conceptual. But that example that we gave about the load balancer solution, that's the type of thing that comes up in conversations with customers, and it's not like us showing off saying we know this and we know that. It's really just reiterating the point that you said to me, how would you fix this problem? And there's a method.
Yeah. It
might not be like 100% accurate if you started going into the detail, you might find things and say, well, actually, a load balancer solution, there's another option, but that is an option, and it's a tried and trusted option. A customer might say, well, I've not got money for a global server load balancer and a server load balancer, and I don't have one at the moment. So you have to be creative, and that's where you might have to come up with things like PBR and as a workaround, etc. So.
Yeah, exactly that. And I guess that's the point, right? That is having the experience to be able to be creative, to be able to say, right, there is another way of doing this. How about we take this approach or whatever? So long as you are able to put the right controls around it, so long as you're able to meet the criteria for the success of the project, then you've got to have those things in your back pocket to be able to be creative.
Mm-hmm. And the WAN and LAN migrations are fairly standard stuff, but again, you could go into each of those for ages, because there's so many different iterations, site profiles, categories, routing protocols, iterations, and if you followed one of, like, let's say the WAN or the LAN migration, and you followed the methodology, but then you were like, oh, you run like a proprietary protocol, the new kit doesn't support that, and it might completely change the way that you have to do it. So, but I mean at the detailed level, but the methodology will stay the same.
No, totally agree.
So on that note, I think we're good.
Good stuff.
We'll get back into the swing of it, and hopefully bring some more interesting content to the table.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So if you've managed to watch this far, congratulations. Thank you very much. As usual, if you've got any comments or queries or corrections or criticisms, you know where we are. At NetFreestyle on Twitter. We can email networkfreestylers@gmail.com, or you can leave comments on the YouTube channel down below, networkfreestyle.tech. Thank you.
Right.
Look forward to hearing from you if you want to talk back to us, and thank you for watching.
Thanks very much. Cheers.
Cheers, guys.